really think about it and plan it out, and just don't make any drastic, last minute decisions. Don't have a bad day at the office and then just say, oh, the heck with it, I'm out of here. It took a lot of thought, a lot of internal planning in my head. How am I going to do this?
Sure.
What are we going to do? Where are we going to focus things on? What kind of jobs we want to get, and just make smart decisions.
Hello and welcome to the Elevator Careers Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Allred. In this podcast, we talk to the people whose lives and careers are dedicated to the vertical transportation industry to inform, inspire, and share lessons learned to build upon the foundation of those who have gone before and inspire the next generation of elevator careers. Today, our guest is John Mezzo, president of Dynasty Elevator in New York City. John started his career with Otis Elevator as a test engineer working in Bloomington, Indiana. He then moved to the U.S. headquarters in Farmington, Connecticut, where he was a mechanical engineer. After a few years of engineering, John moved to Las Vegas, where he worked first as a new equipment sales rep and then as a service sales rep before moving to Reno, Nevada as a territory manager. John moved back to New York and worked with Schindler for a few years in various roles, leading to branch manager, and in 2021, he became a part owner of Dynasty Elevator. John is passionate about the work he does and loves the elevator industry. John, welcome to the show.
Hi, Matt. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you. And you mentioned you're dressed up because you got some big meetings coming up, but it's a privilege to have you on with me today. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. It's the holiday season. So after this, I got customers and then we're doing our company holiday party tonight. So I'm looking forward to it. Awesome.
Yeah, that's a great season. So, I just wanted to get, to the beginning and how did you get started in the elevator industry?
Gotcha. Yeah. So what a story that is. So I was going to college at the University of Hartford in Hartford, Connecticut, and I was getting a degree in mechanical engineering. And my plan in life was to go do aerodynamics for Ferrari. I did my whole senior design on aerodynamics. That was in my head, that's where I was going. I was taking class with a gentleman who was showing up in a suit all the time, and I got along with him very well. Come to find out, he was an area vice president at Otis, and since we got together, we got along well. He ended up helping me get an internship. So Otis hired me for an internship in their Bloomington, Indiana facility as a test engineer, which was great. I got to work on elevators, changing parts out, testing them, analyzing the data, redesigning them, things. It was a great job. So I did that, and then I went back for my last year of college. I finished that, and then Otis hired me right away to work in their world headquarters as a mechanical engineer. So while I was doing that, I kept in touch with the guy that helped me get in, and he was telling me about, hey, go in engineering, learn the product, go in the field, learn the business. I said, okay. So it's actually pretty funny. I was in engineering for about 3 years, and then I was 25 at the time, and I went online and I said, let me start looking at the job postings. And I was still living in Hartford, and they had 3 positions open in Las Vegas.
Wow.
And, the excited 25-year-old that I was at the time was like, hey, I could do that. That was literally my thought process. So I applied for all 3 of them, and then had an interview right away. They offered me a job on the spot. So I packed up and I moved to Vegas. So that was
what kind of job did you move to?
So when they brought me out there, the initial position was supposed to be new equipment sales for just hydros. Because the office there, they had 2 new equipment sales reps, and they were so busy with all the big, the casinos and the construction out there was wild. So they needed somebody to focus on the low-hanging fruit and just sell hydros. So I went out there, no idea what an elevator costs, not much of an idea of what it takes to build them and stuff. I just do it more at a component level. So as soon as I got there, my boss was like, I don't want to see you for 3 months. And he hooked me up with a couple of the new construction teams. And I just went from job site to job site every day, working with the guys a little bit and, getting a feel for it. So that was great. But that was also in 2008. So we were on the cusp of, the recession. And the majority of the people in Las Vegas that live there are construction workers. Their city center was being built for MGM. There's thousands of people that were working there.
Right.
So as city center was winding down and the economy was crashing, a lot of people were just kind of foreclosing on their houses and leaving the area. So that had a significant impact on the elevator business.
Sure.
So I came back in and then I was starting to drum up some quotes, but there was already 2 seasoned sales reps there that had a lot of the contacts. So they were like, well, hey, all there is hydros.
Right.
So, we can't just give up our clients, which is totally understandable, right? They had these customers for a long time.
Right.
My role kind of morphed into new equipment business development. So I was just running around looking for general contractors that have not been buying Otis elevators and trying to get them to buy Otis elevators. But that was tough because the way the economy was going, the little guys that weren't really buying from Otis, didn't really have much work going on.
Sure.
So I drummed up a bunch of leads. I got a bunch of new contacts and stuff. And then while I was doing that, there was a dedicated sales rep in the office who managed the service portfolio for the MGM corporate account. So it was like MGM, Luxor, Circus, Mandalay Bay, etc. And he was transferred.
Right.
So he got an open position there. So I literally just walked over into the service side of the office and said, hey, I think I could do that job. And yeah, and I had a long conversation with the hiring manager, and I shadowed the guy that was leaving for a week or two, and I did pretty good. So they took a chance and they gave me that. So that was great, and that was where I met my mentor. So there's a gentleman out there, and I'll give him a shout out. Hopefully he sees this. His name was Bob Lindley, and he was the service supervisor for the MGM.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I came on with him as the sales rep, and he taught me a tremendous amount of stuff. I still talk to him to this day from time to time because he's really a great personal friend at this point. But we kind of tag teamed it, and he showed me how the service business works, and I just hit the ground running, and I got very into it. I like entertaining customers, meeting new people, specifically like eating in restaurants and things.
Yeah.
Vegas, what's better than that, right? So that was good, and I did that for a while, but I was kind of always aspiring to the next step. And the way that office was structured was a little bit different than some of the ones I've been in since. But the sales reps had cubicles, the managers, the general manager, the sales managers, and the supervisors, service suits, all had offices.
Oh, wow.
I was always kind of aspiring to that because it made sense, right? Those guys, they all manage people. So sometimes you have to have those performance-related conversations, and you need to close a door when you're doing that.
Right.
A cubicle. So I was kind of aspiring, okay, I know how to sell stuff now. Let me do the supervisory part of it. So I ended up getting promoted, and Otis moved me up to Reno, where I was basically doing a little bit of everything up there. I was a modernization superintendent. I was a service superintendent. There was only one other super in the office.
Is that like a territory manager? Is that the title?
Yeah, that's what they called it. It was a territory manager, but it was more than just like a service thing. I was doing all the mod for the office, plus some of the service and things. So that was a smaller office. So everybody kind of wears every hat there.
Right.
But that was fun. That was a good place. Lake Tahoe was right there and stuff like that. But then after a while, it just kind of stagnated for me there a little bit. So I talked to them and said, hey, I'd like to get on to the next thing, whatever that might be. I need that high pressure, the higher end customers. I was so nervous all the time. Like, we have a shutdown overnight. And I'd call a customer, freaking out. They're going to get mad, And I got to Reno and I'm like, hey, the elevator's going to be out, for a day or two. We have to get whatever it was. And they're like, yeah, okay, no problem.
A little more low key.
Yeah, it was a completely different experience for me, but it was nice. I liked it a lot. I snowboard, so Lake Tahoe skiing was great.
Right.
Me and my wife went every weekend from open to close one year. It was great. So I went through that, and then I ended up getting a transfer. I got a transfer to be a major project manager for Otis in Manhattan.
Cool.
Which was great because I was getting engaged at the time, and I had another opportunity to go to San Francisco, which I was considering, but I didn't know anybody in San Francisco. We don't have any family in San Francisco, and we were talking about having kids and stuff. So the transfer to come back to New York, where at least my family is, was kind of a blessing in disguise. So we packed up together. We actually met in Vegas, and then we moved to Reno together, and then we moved to Manhattan together.
Cool.
So I was at Otis here for about a year and a half, working in the Manhattan office, and then Schindler approached me, and they wanted me to run the NYU service portfolio. I said, yeah, okay, I could do that. 'Cause I was at Otis, I was just doing the big mods and I kind of missed the service side of it
Okay.
a little bit, mod construction, you don't have small problems, you have big problems.
Sure.
The GC is not ready and your team is on site, or, some major component got, lost in the ordering process and
Right.
you don't have the controller, but you're in the middle. It's service, it's small problems. A relay blows, a board blows, you need a new door edge. So I kind of like that a little bit better, selfishly. So I ended up going over to Schindler and doing that. And I did that for about 6 years. And then things were going great. But I did notice that in the big companies, they have different departments and there's limited roles up above them, which limits my ability to be more involved across the board rather than just in my one department.
Well, it looked like, I mean, from what I'm hearing, you moved pretty quickly through a lot of these different jobs, and almost like you had a goal. Have you had a goal from the beginning of, hey, here's where I want to be?
Yeah, so it was probably somewhere around when I came to New York, I was like, I've been pretty good at what I've been doing. I've been getting all the awards and stuff. I'm confident in my abilities. And, I could see the margins and everything in the industry. And I just said, hey, maybe one day I should do my own thing.
Yeah.
So when I got here, I started thinking about that. But in New York, it's very difficult. You have to have a elevator agency director's license.
Right.
To do that is an unbelievable process in and of itself. And you have to have 10 years experience, relevant experience within the last 15. And typically they want people that were working on testing and installing elevators, but you can also be supervising as well. So after a while, when I got towards the tail end of Schindler, I just said, let me get my director's license. And I took that on as kind of a personal challenge for myself.
Sure.
I did that on my own. I took a vacation day to take the test. I paid for it out of pocket and whatnot, because I really just wanted to see if I could do it. So I studied, I took a class and all this stuff, and I got it.
Awesome.
I was like, all right, nice. So I was like, okay, well, I got a director's license. Maybe one day I'll do something like that. So we were going and going, and then COVID hit, which was a completely different time for everybody.
Sure.
And I got through that, and then I just felt, I think it was the time in my life for a new challenge. So I just decided to take off, and I was going to start my own company. I ended up meeting with a couple of guys that were looking for a director's license. So I had the license, and they're former field guys.
Right.
So we got together and just said, hey, let's do it. So then, Dynasty Elevator is what I do now. I'm one of the owners of the company. I'm the current sitting president and CEO.
Right.
And I've been on board here for about a year and a half, and we are busy. We have about 400 units on service. We've got tons of work in the backlog. Just this morning, we were talking about hiring another team.
Cool.
So it's going good.
That's awesome. So you said COVID hit. So you actually started kind of either during COVID or right on the tail end of the lockdowns.
Yeah. So my partner that I do this with, he started it right before.
Okay.
And then COVID hit, and they got through it, and then met me as COVID was kind of coming out. So on the tail end of it, I was like, and then COVID was starting to come out, and I was like, I think the time is right. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity coming out of this. So let's jump on it.
Cool.
We were able to be price competitive, and when you have all the way businesses were impacted negatively through COVID, I said, everybody's going to be looking for savings.
Right.
So if we can be the competitive price wise, we should be able to get a lot of work. And we are.
That sounds like you're definitely, I mean, in just a year and a half, to be building and adding that's awesome.
Yeah. To be the size we are and have everything we have, it's some days I have to pinch myself,
That's awesome. It's awesome. So I'm curious, I want to step back for just a minute. I mean, you talked about your dream of going into aerospace, I think you said, and maybe working for Ferrari, and what after the internship, or maybe even, I'm just curious, at what point did you realize that you had something for elevators, right, and that was going to be the new dream, if you will?
Oh, yeah, man, why did I stick with them? Wow. That's a great question. I think this is a very niche industry. And when you walk
Sure.
around, there's not a lot of people like lining up to be working on elevators, right?
Right.
It's most people that get into it, it's either a family member or a friend. But what I did notice is the people that did get into it for whatever reason, everybody stayed.
Sure.
And I just liked it. That I like to work with my hands. Um, and so being in engineering in the start, that was nice. And then when I got out to the selling thing, I just kind of had a natural knack for that. And I just liked it. And I just was so focused on, being the best at what I was doing that I kind of lost sight of everything else.
So you never even thought about going back and working in automotive?
No, it never even crossed my mind. I mean, candidly too, salaries for engineering people starting are typically a little bit higher than salespeople starting. So, I played my cards right in the path that I went from a personal financial standpoint. I had a good, strong salary going.
Sure.
When I went to Vegas, I didn't even get a raise because I was getting, a solid salary relative to a typical brand new sales rep.
Yeah.
And so I just, I went with it, and then, you start selling, and the commissions were very motivating. I found, like, hey, engineering, I didn't have that. So there, I'm like, hey, you land a big sale and you get a bonus.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
Big deal. And, that I think was probably one of the biggest hooks. I'll never forget the first six-figure job I sold was $114,500. I can't even remember what it was, but I remember the dollar amount. So, but it's that you get that little bit of a sales high when you land a job as a salesperson.
Yeah. Well, I guess the impression I'm getting is that, you were able to kind of take the schooling, the tools that you already had as an engineer, and start to apply it in an industry where you could really kind of write your own ticket, right? You could,
Sure.
you succeed here, you could kind of just build a career, build a.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, some of the biggest successes I've had were not, walking in a room dressed like this, but we're walking into a vice president of whatever's office, with safety boots on, dirt on my hands, and a hard hat hanging off my bag. And being
Right.
like, listen, I was just on your top of your elevator, and I looked at all this stuff, and here's what the problems are, and this is what we can do to make it better. And you get a lot of credibility that way.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, what would you say is kind of the goal as you move forward, with your new business? And
right now, I just, I want to get big. I want to keep going. There is a ceiling at some point. I'm not trying to be worldwide or anything.
Mhm.
But I am looking at going to different, I would like to be in a few more cities and stuff. Florida's booming right now. We're looking for some opportunities down there. We've had some, conversations and things come up. But yeah, right now it's like, let's get this city, New York, functioning and rolling, and we'll get some more people on board so we can have more time to do other stuff and just see where it goes.
That's awesome. Yeah. What would you say are some of the biggest issues facing the industry?
I think a lot of code changes are not necessarily an issue, but the timing in which they come into effect, like blowout monitoring, for instance, when that first came out in New York, that was a little bit challenging. Nobody really knew what was going on with it, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, the deadline is here, and it was like a mass scramble to get that done. I do think that manpower is an issue.
Sure.
There's a big age gap, I think, at the unions, or the union, I should say. But I think that'll be good. I know there's a lot of job fairs and things. Some of my competitors, as well as myself, we do a lot and everything we can to promote more people.
Sure.
But as construction work really drives everything.
Sure.
So, you have right now, just in New York, a couple of big construction jobs finished. Unfortunately, that meant a bunch of people got laid off, which means right now there's a bunch of people on the bench.
Gotcha.
So it's we got to get the bench cleared before we can start hiring some of the next generation of people. So I think that's going to be a challenge, but I think that's definitely a solvable one.
Yeah.
The union does a great job with the job fairs and stuff. The NEIP schooling program that the IUEC does is great. I'm actually going through that myself.
Cool.
So that's exciting as
Awesome.
well. But
Yeah. Yeah. What are some things that you either do or are looking to do as you grow your business to kind of create the culture where people want to stay and want to come, work for you versus, versus the churn that sometimes you see in certain companies?
Sure, sure. So, couple things. One, in terms of office staff right now, I am and we are big on experience. So, I notice with big companies, you get a lot of supervisors and things that it's like kind of their first job, and they're, kind of learning as they go. Um, for me, I want the most experienced people I can get in those roles. So, if you're going to be a superintendent, that's great, but you have to have some solid technical elevator knowledge, whether it's from engineering or whether it's from working in the field.
Right.
I would love to get, top-notch mechanics, foremen to come in and be supervisors, but that never happens. With the overtime they can make, as well as the benefits and stuff in the union. I've only seen two people in my whole career, all 17 years of it,
Right.
go from the field, give up their card and come in the office.
Yeah, that's
People
rare.
don't want to do that,
Yeah.
which is understandable. So we're kind of, we run a little bit of a different model. The guys running the jobs here are union members too. So they're foremen, but we work as well. It's whatever has to get done. Kind of, we go where we got to go. So that's pretty good. But that's the biggest thing is experience. I push for that, and we do what we can to develop people. There's a project executive in our office. She's not looking to get a QEI right now, but she's looking to be more technical.
Cool.
There was a QEI training class, for people to get their credits and things. So we sent her to that. She wanted to go. We said, go for it. Personal
That's awesome.
development is big. And, I'm never going to tell someone, no, you can't go learn something.
Right.
He learns
Right.
a little bit about whatever, I don't know, a soft starter, and then goes and sells one. And boom, we paid for the class with that one thing, and everybody's happy. So
That's awesome. So what kind of advice would you give somebody who maybe they want to come into the industry, and just start out fresh? What would you say to them?
yeah, so there's two avenues, right? You can go the field route or you can go the office route. If you're going to go the office route, which is, to be frank, probably the fastest because everybody's hiring. I would say go in as a sales rep, spend a lot of time with your supervisor, spend a lot of time with your mechanics, get a good relationship going with them, and just try to learn as much as you can. Don't just focus on that sale or how to sell. You need to know that, but you also got to know what you're selling. And when you go in there and you're trying to sell whatever, if you can't speak, A to Z about it, then the customer is going to kind of look at you and say, if you don't know what you're talking about, why should I spend, however much money on this?
Yeah.
Elevator is not the cheapest things on the street.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that, because as soon as you said, spend time with your mechanics and your supervisor, superintendent, whatever, it automatically I was thinking, that is kind of a trade-off, right? Do I want to be kind of pursuing the next commission, or do I want to be learning and really investing in myself so I can be more effective?
Yeah, I mean, I was, and I still am, 7 days a week. I do whatever's got to get done with customers, the field, whatever, during business hours, and at night is when I do all my catch-up stuff. I mean, now with my current situation, I have about an hour and 10-minute train ride in and out of the city. And so I use that time typically on my laptop, doing emails, getting quotes
Sure.
out, approving payroll, whatever the case may be, going through the vacation schedule and stuff. But, you got to kind of make the best of it. And, I managed to utilize my commuting time by taking the train as productive work time, which allows me to do what I got to get done during the day too.
Yeah, that's awesome. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, some of us who don't live in New York kind of envy the trains, because it's like, I can't do anything while I'm driving.
Yeah, for a while I was driving because at Schindler I had a company vehicle, and candidly it didn't cost me anything to drive. But it was my phone would be going off, my emails would be going crazy, and when you're driving, that's what you're doing.
Right.
You can have a phone call or two or whatever, but you can't do emails, you can't approve payroll. There's a lot of stuff. And eventually I just said, and then the traffic too, around here. Some days I'd get home in an hour, some days it'd be 2.5.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I can't deal with it. The train is consistent.
Pretty consistent. Exactly.
So it's good.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm curious if you were to, wave a magic wand and change any one thing, anywhere in the industry or whatever the economy, what would you want to adjust or modify?
I would like lower insurance rates.
I hear you.
Yeah, the insurance for our industry is very, that's, our biggest expense for the most part. But that's a good question on a more serious note. I don't know. I mean, probably looking at people's attitudes and getting people to adapt relative to, it's kind of everybody, but a lot of guys out there in the field, as well as some of the supers and stuff, this is how we do it. We've done things this way
Right.
100 times, right? And so how do you get people to look at things a little differently and say, hey, look, why don't we try this? It'd be a little bit more efficient. And well, we don't do it that way. Well, you got to change sometime,
Sure.
Go with the times. Elevators, and now we have MRLs. There's a system coming out with 2 elevators and 1 shaft. There's emergency access
Right.
stuff. So there's a lot of change coming, and we just kind of got to work on getting everybody to adapt
Yeah.
to that change.
No, it's interesting to hear you say that because you're right. I think that the one constant is probably change in technology and software in like you say, just different configurations and so for people to be the resistor that say no we want to do it the same way we did it 40 years ago is really not going to work.
It's a challenge, and we gotta adopt with the times, and it just is what it is.
Yeah. Even though sometimes it's hard to learn a new skill. It's hard to think of a problem in a different way, but that's awesome. So we're getting kind of close on our time. And I guess the last question I want to ask you is, if you were to give advice to either new, business owners like yourself or somebody who maybe wants to take that leap and start their own, what would you say to them?
Think about it hard. Make sure you're in a position to be able to do that. I mean, I'm fortunate in that I know tons and tons of people, so I have a lot of contacts. So I was able to, get a lot of work rapidly because I had a network of people
Right.
Going into it. But I would just say, really think about it and plan it out, and just don't make any drastic, last minute decisions. Don't have a bad day at the office and then just say, oh, the heck with it, I'm out of here. It took a lot of thought, a lot of internal planning in my head. How am I going to do this?
Sure.
What are we going to do? Where are we going to focus things on? What kind of jobs we want to get? And just make smart decisions. If you're confident in your abilities and you think you can do it, there's, like I told other people in New York City, there's 82,000 elevators, I think.
Wow.
I just want to carve out 2,000, something like that. There's enough sand in the sandbox for everybody.
Sure.
And it's really great too, where we're getting to the point now where we're starting to get service customers and things off of referrals and word of mouth.
Cool.
Somebody called the other day and said, hey, someone referred me to you guys. Can you come check out my building? And that was a good day for me because, we've been grinding it out, running around. And so now that it's like finally some organicness coming to it was
kind of coming back to you.
Yeah, it was coming back, and it was just nice. It was a good feeling because it said, hey, all the marketing, all the branding, all the, the events that we go to, all the stuff, it's gotten us out there, and it's finally starting to pay back. So that was a good feeling.
That is awesome. That is awesome. John, is there anything else you wanted to share or anything on your heart and mind as we kind of wrap this up?
No, just thank you very much for the time. This was fun. I appreciate it. And thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate having you here and appreciate your thoughts, your words of wisdom, and I wish you the very best as you continue to build the business.
Awesome. I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the Elevator Careers Podcast. You can check us out online at elevatorcareers.net. Please subscribe, and until next time, stay safe.